Hi guys, it's Kelly Lanivola here, and I'm back with another video for Neat and Tangled. Today we're going to be using the Have Courage set, which while I love the little ginkgo trees in it, I love the sentiments even more, even though I didn't use them today. And then I also used the Happiness stamp set and the matching die. So I am working on Canson watercolor paper. I'm stamping these in Barely Beige ink from Simon Says Stamp because I wanted to do some no-line watercoloring. So I'm just stamping the leaf portion of it. I don't need the stem. And I'm only using one of them. There's a very large one and a smaller one in the stamp set, and I'm just using the little one. I did stamp this multiple times because the Barely Beige ink is really light. And I think total I stamped it 3 times each. And like I said, I just never stamped the stem. So I had this idea for this card almost as soon as I saw the release. Basically what I want to do is I want to do watercolor the leaves, but then I wanted to build them up behind the little happiness die. So here I was thinking I was going to do it like a more controlled way. So put down very minimal water. So there's just like a sheen and then just kind of drop color in. I ended up using a little bit more water than I originally anticipated because I just had a really hard time gauging how much I needed. And I'm not a patient person, and I got very frustrated with how fast the leaf was drying. So I ended up, as I progressed, using more water, which there isn't anything wrong with that. It just takes longer to dry. That's all. So for this one, I use the quinacridone rose and the Indian yellow, I think it is. And then I also mix the two to create an orange. And I thought, well, that would be really fun. The goal here was kind of to make them look like flowers and not to make them look like leaves. So I thought, well, that'll be a good color combination. Eventually, as I went through and did it, I added in some green as well. And then it started to have a very fall leaf feel, which I did not love. So I'm going to show you a little bit of this one, and I'm going to speed it up because it did take me, quite some time. Watercoloring is time consuming. I'm also using a number 2 round brush from the Silver Brush Company, but you can use just whatever you have on hand. These are the ones that just happen to be my go-to for it. So, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and speed up the coloring so we're not sitting here together forever and ever. And you'll see that usually after I put down the first layer of color, because watercolors dry back so much, and I just love bold color. So I will go back in and add in darker color as I move through it. This was like I said, I don't know. I thought the color combination would be pretty for flowers, but then it looked like fall leaves. And so I wasn't really sure that I was going to end up using this piece. And so that's why I switched colors. That's why there ended up being 2 cards, because I tell you guys all the time not to give up and see if there's a way that you can fix it or work with it or whatever. And, so I really do try to do that because crafting products are expensive and I don't want to waste them. But also I really do think that it teaches you things, having to overcome whatever it is, whatever the adversity is for your card. I think it challenges you and helps you to grow and really makes you learn things maybe you wouldn't otherwise have done. So here's where I'm going to start adding in the green on this leaf here, and then it just really started to feel like as they dried, I was like, oof, these look like fall leaves, and it is May. So not really so much. They will be really pretty fall leaves when that comes. Like when that time of year comes, I think that they'll be great for that, and maybe I'll revisit it. But anyway, so like I said, I had this idea almost right out the gate. It just took me a minute to do that, to get the card together, because I actually went out of town. So last weekend, if you watch my YouTube channel, you know that last weekend we were supposed to go out of town and my son got sick. But I'm actually really grateful that it happened on that weekend, because this past weekend, I was out of town visiting craft friends. And so I'm pretty sure my husband would have straight murdered me if I left him alone with that kind of sickness all by his lonesome. Not that he couldn't have handled it, I'm sure he could have. I'm just also sure he wouldn't have wanted to. So if you frequently watch watercolor videos, and you've probably heard people, including myself, say multiple times that you don't want to work in two areas next to each other that are wet. That's why you saw me with the last ones kind of bouncing all over the place, because they will bleed into each other. But if you make a mistake with watercolor, you can sop it up with a wet cloth, or with a dry cloth. What I'm telling you is don't use the wet one. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't use the wet one. So here, originally, I thought, well, I'll use the quinacridone purple, the ultramarine blue, and the ultramarine turquoise. And then so I'm building up that color, and then I just really didn't like it. I just really wasn't feeling it. It didn't feel like flowers to me. It felt more like leaves again, and I was trying to get away from that. So I had a slightly damp and a dry baby wipe that was sitting next to me on my, like I have a little drawer that's next to my desk, and it was sitting in the drawer. And so I grabbed the one that I thought was dry, because the slightly damp one was dry on one corner. And so when I go to pick it up, which I did the first time, it was fine. But then, like, as I blotted it more, because I had that damp area, it actually just kind of like splotched it around. So I went in with the number 8 round brush, and I wet the whole area, and then sopped it up with the dry one this time. But I noticed that the color really stuck to the ink that I had put down, which I think will maybe be a cool technique for another time to try. So I'll revisit that. But watercolors are really forgiving. So if you have something that you don't like, please don't give up. Just blot it up with a dry, clean paper towel, and then just try again. So I did have some fuzzier edges because, I picked it up with the wet one and just smushed it all around. But ultimately you can't see it at the end, with the card. So for this one, what I ended up doing was the quinacridone purple, the ultramarine blue, and the quinacridone rose. Why is it so hard for me to talk? Rose. What? Anyway. So again, I'm gonna speed it up just so you can see a couple of the different colors, because since I did do 6 of these, it was really time consuming. When I did this one, I paid less attention to any sort of pattern, and I really just kind of dropped the color in. I did go back in with just like the tip of my paintbrush and make sure that the color spread all the way out to the edges, because I am gonna die cut these. If I was doing this in a 1-layer piece, I would not even have paid any attention. It would have mattered to me how the edges looked. But because I was going to die cut it and it was going to have a very defined edge, I wanted to make sure that the color did go to the edges. So it has been, we're finally into May. This has been the perpetual winter, just never ending. And so finally we are into some nicer weather. Hallelujah. I mean, I'm just so over the cold weather. If it comes back again, I'll seriously cry. I'm not being dramatic. I really will cry. So now these are all dry, and I didn't want to give up on them. I didn't want to give up on my fall leaves here. I thought that there was a way that maybe I could make them look like more flowers. So more like flowers, not more flowers. I don't know. Talking is hard. I don't know if you realize that, but sometimes when you sit down to do a voiceover, because I do talk the whole time. Sometimes I'm just like, I'm not restarting again. Not for the 3rd time. I'm not doing it. So I'm using the die, but I cut them apart because I stamped them so close together, and I don't want that stem to cut through the rest of my flowers. So I cut them apart, ran them through my Big Shot. And then here's how I'm going to try to make them look more like flowers. I picked an RV04, which is a very bright pink. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of detail onto the leaf. So it kind of changes the look of them a little bit. So I did the pink, and then I thought I would go over that with just like a white line. You see that a lot in like violets and things like that. So I thought, oh, well, that'll be cute. So I did do it, and then I did not love it. So after I did this one, I did the other like flower bunches with just the pink, and I like the pink a lot better. So I'm just going to go back in with that same Copic marker and color right over the white. Now it's not going to completely erase it, but it will mask it where it's almost really not noticeable. I did the same thing with the blue and purple ones. I picked a purple and I did the same kind of little design there. And then I also wanted to kind of to mask that white line that I put on the pink ones, but I thought that it would be really pretty on the purple ones, especially since they're darker. I went in and added some white dots with my gel pen. I concentrated them more at the base of each leaf and kind of spread them out sporadically as they moved toward the top. I also, while I was doing my die cutting, I die cut the happiness die out of, this is Blue Violet and the other one is Doll Pink. They're both by Simon Says Stamp. And then I'm matting them on white. There's 2 dies in that happiness die. One that's like a border and one's the actual wording. When I'm doing flower arrangements, I always really like to put Tombow Mono multi-glue just a little bit on the back. And then I kind of tap it with my fingers until it's just tacky. This particular glue, when it dries, it's repositionable. And then I like to use that to try to figure out how I want to organize my bouquet, and I don't have to chase everything all over the place. For the rest of the sentiment, I used the same colors. I just white heat embossed the sentiment from the stamp set. So one of them says, happiness is watching you soar. I have a girlfriend who's kind of challenging herself to do some new things, and I thought that that would be a really good card for her because I am so proud of her for just putting herself out there and being really brave. And then the other one says, happiness is having a friend like you. I'm actually going to cover up the heart. I'm going to position the second part of the sentiment over the heart so it's a little bit closer to that happiness. And then I'm going to pop the whole thing up on foam tape and add that right over my little floral bunch there. I did them 2 different ways. I actually ended up preferring the pink card, even though the purple is how I had originally saw it in my head. I think maybe with the purple I'm missing that green, like those green leaves to break up a flower bunch. So here to just, kind of finish them off, I am putting on some clear sequins from the mixed clear sequins collection from Neat and Tangled. And then I always fill mine in with some glossy accents to make sure that they're nice and secure. The last thing that I did was I covered the colored cardstock with just some clear shimmer so that it gave them a little bit of something else. Now, when you're looking at it, it is making the paper darker because it's damp, but they do lighten back up to their regular color. So this is both of the cards. I hope it gave you a little bit of inspiration to maybe try something different or see your stamps differently. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.